Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 82 of B2B SaaS Marketing Snacks. I'm Brian Graf, CEO of Kalungi, and today, as almost always, I'm joined by Kalungi's co-founder, Stijn Hendrikse, a seasoned SaaS marketing executive and ex-Microsoft product marketing leader. In this short but sweet episode, we dive into a framework that every marketing leader, executive, and ambitious professional should know, the development matrix. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the never-ending to-do list or struggled to balance high-impact work with personal growth, this conversation's for you. Stijn walks us through how this tool helps leaders and teams prioritize work effectively, avoid burnout, and delegate tasks strategically. We discuss why it's crucial to focus on the right tasks, how to empower others through delegation, and how AI is changing the game when it comes to productivity and execution. If you want to stay ahead in B2B SaaS leadership, this episode is packed with insights to help you level up. Let's get into it. Okay, we are back for a very quick episode. We got probably about 10 minutes to get through this one, but I think it's a really important topic brought to you by the man, the myth, Stijn Hendrikse himself. I think this problem exists for marketers, for marketing leaders, and executives, probably in increasing amounts for each of those steps. Time is always a very finite resource in marketing, particularly in B2B SaaS. There's always things to do. You always have a deadline to hit that came out of nowhere that's too tight, right? And you need to figure out a way to get everything done in time. You never have enough time to get on top of your list, right? Particularly as a marketer. So how can you make sure that you and your team are getting the right things done, right? Particularly as a marketing leader and as an executive, but more importantly, right? Not even about initiatives. How can you make sure you're getting the right results? And often, honestly, I've seen people get that far, right? And perform pretty well for a few months and then just hit a wall after 6 months because they just haven't been able to, they can't keep up with the burn rate that they're putting themselves through. So even to throw an additional question in there, how can you do that without burning out in the process? And so one of the things that Stijn has taught me early on is about this thing called the development matrix, which is a really key concept to think about, particularly as you start to level up in your career and start to manage people. It's basically a framework that you can use to learn what and how to delegate off your plate to make sure that the right things get done, the right results get achieved, but you stay engaged and really focused on the things where you can add the most value and have the best time. So I'll hand it off to Stijn. Talk us through a little bit what the development matrix is. Maybe we can go through some of the quadrants and then talk about why it's so important.
Yeah, it's never been a better time to talk about it than now, with especially all the AI tools at our disposal. Mm-hmm. Brian, what the development matrix really comes down to is ask yourself the question, who is best equipped to do the work that's right in front of me? Right? Is it best for me to do that, or should I see if there's anybody else better positioned, better trained, or would actually enjoy doing this work more than I, right? Most of us know situational leadership. Situational leadership has kind of two kind of dimensions, and you group work under basically how confident is someone doing the work and how competent is someone doing the work. This matrix is a little bit of a variation on that, but it doesn't look at competency. It looks at actual outcomes. How good are you? How effectively are you actually in driving outcomes? And the other dimension is different. It's how much fun do you have? How much do you enjoy? How much energy does something give you? And because when you decide to do work yourself, if it's not something you're really enjoying doing, you might not be giving it, the effort and the engagement level that will get the best results, right? So. Mm-hmm. What the development matrix basically does, it asks you to rank everything you spend time on these two axes, right? How much do I think I'm contributing? Am I, on average, performing at a level where the output is more than average or less than average? So I use a ranked scale 1 to 10 and basically say, if you feel you're doing less than maybe average than other people in your team could, then maybe go under the 5. And if you feel you do more, then go over. If you do more, you usually also are good at potentially coaching other people in doing the work. Mm-hmm. And then the other dimension is how much energy does this give you, right? And again, under the 5, things that drain you, over 5 things that give you energy. And when you rank everything like that in those two kind of dimensions, you'll find that there are things that give you a lot of energy, but you're maybe not as great at them yet. The output is still, you're still getting better. That is what we call quadrant number 1. You're learning something new. And then the second quadrant is you're getting actually really good at it. You're still having a ton of fun. And that's kind of the performance quadrant. And you kind of want everything you do ideally to be in these 2 quadrants, because the next quadrant would be you're still maybe performing at a decent level. The output is still good, but you're definitely not having as much fun anymore. It might be starting to drain you a little bit. And then because if it stays too long in that quadrant, it actually could impact your performance. And then it's not only costing you a lot of energy, but actually the outcomes are going south, right? So things typically travel along these, like through these 4 quadrants. You have a lot of fun, you're still learning, you're really good at it, you're still having fun. You're not necessarily having a lot of fun anymore, although you're still able to keep up the quality level. And then at some point, maybe that would deteriorate. And that's where you don't want to get to, right? So if you have things that are in the 3rd quadrant, things that you're actually pretty good at, but you're not necessarily finding it as interesting anymore, as engaging, those are ideal candidates for you to either coach someone else or to ask someone to maybe take it over, for whom that could be a new task, something they've never done before, something that could be exciting for them, right? And thus the quality level is likely also going to be higher. And if they're new to that task, you could become their coach. And coaching someone doing it might be actually interesting for you, although you don't want to do it yourself anymore. You might be a great coach, right? And
almost starts you at the beginning of the cycle again, right?
Yeah. And I developed this when I was in the Netherlands. So this is based on a couple of leadership trainings I had when I was at Microsoft, and then I added some of my own things to it. And then there was a book that came out a couple of years ago, 20 years later. It's called Who, Not How. That actually is literally doing basically the same. It's basically asking yourself every time you have something to do, am I the right person to do it? Or is there someone else who could best do this, that might be better equipped, or that I could coach? And now to kind of bring it full circle, now that we all have access to things like ChatGPT and other great tools to help you not only do your work by delegating to others, but also letting AIs help you. Another great question to ask yourself every day when you have new work to do, is this better done by me, or should I throw it into the AI first? So that's kind of the concept of the development matrix, Brian.
Great summary. I think there's a few things to double down on there. One is that the matrix applies for every single, similar to situational leadership, for every single task that you do, right? You can plot on there somewhere, right? And then also each task inevitably tends to progress through each quadrant, right? The more that you do it. And so something that maybe you really enjoyed and got a ton of energy out of early in your career, 5 years later, nobody wants to be doing the exact same thing for 5 to 10 years, right? And so as those things progress, right? Yeah, it's so critical to get them off your plate and into a place where you can coach and see, somebody develop and free up your time for something more important. What I've seen with a lot of leaders as they're kind of getting their feet underneath them is this tendency to think that because they can do something, they should. And that, I feel like, is a good way to drown yourself slowly as a leader, right? Just because you can run campaigns or write copy, right, to use marketing analogies, doesn't mean that as a marketing leader, that's the best use of your time, right? Because every minute that you spend doing that is a minute that you can't spend going over data or thinking of strategy or researching competitors or interviewing customers, right? And so it's a really key practice to take time out of your month, quarter, right, and do repeatedly to make sure that you're continuing to level up. But also it gives you, your team, right, opportunities to continue to take on more and become more ambitious and to reward people who ask for more and perform highly. So anyway, I think it's a really, really interesting and effective.
Such a great point. We get so conditioned in the Western world that when we ask someone else to do something, that we're kind of abdicating our own responsibility, right? We're trying to hide from the work, and it's almost the reverse, right? If you're able to teach someone else for whom this would be enormously fun and be a great, opportunity for growth, you're almost taking away that opportunity from someone by holding on to it.
And they get stuck in their roles, and then they get bored, and then they start looking at other opportunities, and nobody wants that. The key, I guess, the one other point, right, is that if you're going to give something away, you got to give it away the right way, right? You can't go to the other side of the pendulum and say, okay, my team can take all of my work and I don't need to do anything, and I don't need to coach them on any of it, right? That's not a good recipe either. So it is all about balance. But
and that's where you grab situational leadership as a great toolkit to how do you actually coach someone who is learning something new, right? And the 4 stages of situational leadership are a great opportunity if you're trying to delegate work, right? To do that the right way.
That is correct. Okay, well, I think that's about all we have time for. So short but sweet, I do think it's a really important framework for people to consider, and let us know if you want us to dive into that a little bit more. But thanks so much. Thank you to Adriana Valerio for producing this episode and the Kalungi team for helping us make this whole thing work. And of course, you for choosing to spend your time with us. As a reminder, all the links we mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. And if you want to submit or vote on a question you'd like us to answer, you can do that at kalungi.com/podcast. Every time we record, we take one of the top 3 topics and jam on it. Thanks again.